as in the teams that make it. Yeah, so what we're seeing now is essentially, like, this is, if you win this game, you got 2 more to go after that.
Right. Oh, and just to interrupt you right now, as we load in to this game, I want everybody to look at Shaq's name, which is like a bunch of like random symbols. Now, if he already told you in his chat, don't call it out stream, but what do you think that's supposed to be? Because I don't think it looks like what it's supposed to be. I'll just see what chat guesses, and I'll see how wrong everybody is, because that doesn't look at all like anything. But as we start to go here, now we talked about earlier, as far as Synergy goes, they, oh my gosh, well, what we were going to say is that they're very individually skilled players that will be hard-pressed to beat some of the more organized teams that also have similar individual skills, but, you know, kind of more teamwork. But as it seems right now, they might just have the individual skill, because Synergy does take out a lot of members of For the Win. For the Win, however, does recover here. There is only 1 member of Synergy alive, so a quick push to 58 at the beginning. Essentially a wipe in both directions at the very start of the game. Let's see how far For the Win can push with their advantage now.
Well, not very far, apparently, because they immediately go down 2 players, and they're left with an H3, which is not the situation the H3 likes to be in. Nonetheless, we have, actually, they are still jumping in, so the H3's done a good job of staying alive and keeping the presence in middle. However, it does seem as though that's coming to a swift end right about now. Stingray's coming out to cover this push, though it also seems as though it's just too much of a bloodbath to actually get anything really happening. The Stingray is dodging madly, and yeah, it's sort of all a wash in the end. The tower is just sort of pushed one way and then the other, and gone back to middle with nothing really having been accomplished by either team. At this point, though, it looks as though the advantage is in FTW's favor. They've got the specials ready to go on the tower. Actually, well, they're going to have to get someone back on. There they go. And you can sort of see there's nothing really to stop the push at this point from Synergy's side.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have somebody showing up from the left-hand side in a little bit, so it's up to For the Win to have a good, presence of mind to have someone go control that. And as I say that, For the Win just completely runs up, gets a bunch of picks. Any flank that was coming from Synergy from the right side of your screen was taken out early, and the tower pushes all the way to 22. Now, someone was taken off the tower. Ant is going to try to get a double, does not. His teammate gets a revenge kill, and this the momentum is definitely starting to fizzle out. This looks like it's basically going to be a reset situation, but look at the points. 22 points, really hard to get past that on this map and mode. You typically see 30 be kind of like this critical point where it's just too easy for people to respawn and come do something about it. So this is going to have to be a really good push from Synergy. However, we do have about half the time in the game left, so we've talked about it plenty of times before. An early lead is the worst lead sometimes, because it gives your opponents that many more opportunities to overcome that lead. But, you know, out of that situation, we kind of saw members of For the Win jump out, but they jumped out to mid. So even though Synergy got a lot of kills and everybody was forced to jump out who didn't die, For the Win was able to still maintain mid-map control. They're starting to lose it now, but they basically shaved off like 40 seconds of the remaining time in the game with that good map control there. And Synergy's not really making any kind of push, so by the time Synergy gets a push going, they might have like 90 seconds or so left to do something.
Yeah, and you can see essentially For the Win is just rolling all over the map. They don't really care about which side of the base is, which side of the map is their base. They just want 2 bases, and it's at this point they're essentially getting exactly that. It's not a whole hell of a lot that Synergy can do about this. Like, well, they've got a couple of picks now. As I say that,
there's gotta be a Stingray.
But yeah, like, there's a Stingray ready to go, and it seems as though For the Win is just playing it patiently. They're waiting. They don't need to really commit to anything at this stage, and you can see Kyo just waits for an opportune moment to get a pick on the junior, and now essentially it's well.
Oh my gosh, Tim! Never mind.
Tim.
Never mind. Wow.
So I was trying to make a point there, but then I just kept getting interrupted by Tim being Tim. So unfortunately for the Win, this push is still definitely on the cards.
Yeah, and I was also going to kind of have something ready to say, something along the lines of we talked about how Synergy, they're this really individually skilled team, but when they fight other equally individually skilled teams that kind of are a little bit more experienced with like coordination, play the game more, they have trouble with it. And while they're not winning, they did really show that they may not be they may still have an advantage as far as individual skill goes with people like Tim getting all these picks, but the problem is that they need to win the game in 20 seconds, and while they did just get basically a wipe For the Win is definitely going to be able to probably get a Stingray, get people in position. We see Shaq over there to the right trying to do something, get a flank ready, be able to pincer the tower. Q as well. We'll just see if this works out. No, there's a Stingray duel going on right now, which which Tim actually wins. So that is Stingray down for the Win. But yeah, there's too many opportunities for the tower to get stopped. We can talk about that. Last checkpoint is just kind of ridiculous, and that's going to be game 1.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things about that sort of ending to point out. So first thing is we saw Synergy sort of struggle a bit on tower control against Oblivion and friends, and part of the reason for that, as you can see, they had no trouble getting the picks. They completely outfragged for the Win there. But the problem was that a lot of those kills were sort of trades that in fights that already were over. A lot of it was like stuff that wasn't really relevant to the objective. A lot of it was defensive picks where the tower just kept moving anyway. It was that one sort of big sledgehammer push for the Win that won them the game, and then the rest of the game they just sort of sat in the middle and let Synergy do their thing. But of course, Synergy, the big problem at the end there was, even though they won the Stingray battle distracted the rest of the team from the fact that they were getting surrounded from all sides. So because of the Stingray going off, everyone was like, oh, I gotta keep the tower sort of around, and I've got to I gotta dodge the Stingray so I'm alive and all that. And then of course there's a Blaster just going up their drawbridge and jumping straight down onto them, and then the H3 comes from the front. It's like a perfect pincer. So that's sort of the I guess underrated threat from a Stingray in overtime. It's not just that the Stingray clears out the tower, it's also that the Stingray draws attention to itself, forces you to use your own Stingray on the tower as opposed to using it to sort of clear out defenders.
And now you have another person. If the Stingray damages someone and the Stingray user countering the Stingray, both of those people are sort of becoming out of the equation.
Yes.
Making that tower push happen, which is why it's so powerful in overtime.
Yeah. So you can see a perfect example of that there, like just winning the Stingray battle. It looked sort of bad for a moment there, but then it didn't matter because all the other players were in really good position.
Well, now we're going to go into Rainmaker Mako Mart, which I think is going to have a different dynamic. I mean, obviously Stingrays are still good here and all that kind of stuff, but this is definitely a map where wipes get points. And we've seen these teams wipe each other a lot, but in tower control, you need more consistent control over more time to have the same kind of push in tower control compared to Rainmaker. So these two teams, they were kind of just wiping each other, and especially early on, and there weren't really that many. The consequences for those wipes weren't that strong, at least not right away. In Rainmaker, you don't really have checkpoints to kind of provide a buffer between a team and getting points. You don't have a slow-moving tower to deal with. If these wipes keep happening, the Rainmaker is going to get pushed a lot. And something that we might very well see is one team getting an early lead to something ridiculous like almost a knockout, and then just getting wiped like later on in the game and having the Rainmaker either knock out on them or just get like a point more or something like that. So especially on this map, I think that the lead is going to be a very unstable concept until an actual knockout happens.
Yeah, it's good that you point out the speed of the objective there, because with tower control, one of the things as when you're defending, it goes both ways. When you're defending, because the tower moves at a relatively slow speed, I should say, it means that you have options on the defense as well. So you could see at the end of the game there was probably a good 10 seconds for Kyo to just, at his own leisure, go out of the base, go into middle, check that there's nobody there, and then just sort of climb a drawbridge and then jump down on the tower from behind. You can't do that on Rainmaker. If you try to flank the Rainmaker as a defender, you're essentially inviting the Rainmaker to just push, right? Because if you're moving around the map nice and slowly to sort of conceal yourself and come out from the opportune spot, you have to be planning that ahead so that you reach the Rainmaker when it's 40 points ahead of where it currently is. You don't have time as such to move in and to surround the Rainmaker and really get a proper stop happening. We actually again saw this in Synergy versus Oblivion, where Synergy had that one push where they got to 13 or whatever it was, and that came as a result of them just grabbing the Rainmaker and making an absolute dash for it, and Oblivion essentially had to meet them face first, which is exactly where Synergy's defenders were.
Right.
So look for that, especially on this map, because that is how this map operates. If you get the Rainmaker up onto the sort of high ground, you can sort of see on the top right and lower left side of the map in the overhead screen there. That is where that exact playstyle becomes very, very powerful.
And by the way, like I said at the beginning of last game, if anyone has guessed that Shaq's face, that Shaq's little symbols right there is supposed to be a mouse, it's supposed to be a mouse. And you win. I thought it was a Christmas tree being knocked over, but if you guess mouse in chat, DM Irek about your free spectator and plane tickets to go see a Platinum Cup in Japan, and if he says anything about me joking, argue with him.
How is that a mouse? What the...
He said it's like an ear and like it's supposed to be like a little scruff behind him, and it's like the tail in the back. I don't know. Shaq
that is not a mouse.
Shaq's just a stupid teenager, man. I don't know. But now we have, like we talked about, Bloodbath in the center of the map right now, and actually kind of surprised that we haven't seen a full wipe yet, considering the way these teams play. But maybe they also are aware that this is a map where, this is a map mode where you really can't be that risky like they were in those tower control games. Wiping has a stronger, has a more important consequence. So both teams were kind of being careful not to wipe right there at the start of the map. And as a result, we have some low scores considering what we expected. So now we have a 3v3 situation. We're kind of in a little bit of a neutral game right now. Tim pushes up a little bit too far as Resbit decides to pick up the Rainmaker, and that's going to get him killed. Ice does not fall off the level for once in this tournament. And it looks like it is actually going to be for the win that is in a decent situation to push.
Yeah, and you can sort of see the Splatling versus Charger matchup on Resbit's, as we got Resbit's perspective for a little while there. That is not pleasant for the heavy Splatling at all. It's so incredibly easy to just get caught, and then you can't do anything. You're stuck wherever you are. You have to run away because the Charger just has more range than you, and doesn't really care too much about the fact that you can just paint his feet. Because
it was like that. It was like that in Splat 1 as well. Like we kind of talked about this kind of like the QR meta and these kind of like rock paper scissors game, team comps against each other, and it was always kind of just like Splatling does better against regular team comps, and then Charger does better against Splatling team comps, and then you had this kind of rock paper scissors where the Charger would get rushed down.
I remember
yeah, and it's basically the same way in this game.
Flowchart kind of thing, yeah. That Swag Bomb actually got the kill on the Rainmaker. That was really close. This weapon. With the extra that ink tank is enormous.
Oh yeah, that baby bottle pop is huge, dude. I love that thing.
But excuse me. Yeah, that's and that I think that's sort of a big part of the reason why Chargers suddenly come back into vogue is just because there are so many long range weapons now, and the Charger beats all of them.
Yeah, the Charger has a good
Splatling, all of them. Just Chargers beats everything. It might not necessarily be great on its own against a lot of these short range weapons, but it doesn't matter if the enemy team's blowing through their team comp slots on long range weapons.
Like rapid pros and chargers and squeezers, and now this the big backyard grill weapon that just came out. All these long range stuff that the Charger's gonna have really good matchups against. You do have to be wary of a really flexible team being able to just pick 4 close range aggressive weapons and just completely dominate your Charger comp, because that is a bad matchup for you. But you really don't see people have the cojones to just not run backlines in this meta.
Yeah, and you can sort of see actually the Synergy's sort of lack of backliners. They've got only the heavy Splatling, that's the longest range that they have. It seems to be working out for them, at least for the time being. They've only got a 1-point lead, but that's still a lead. Although I say that, they seem to be a little bit out of position here to stop this Rainmaker.
Look at the movement. Oh, unfortunately, the Rainmaker falls right there. He's going to have to climb back up, and this might cost him the precious points that he needs to get this lead. But they do get the lead. They do push up a lot more points than they needed, to be honest. Oh, what Ice? This is not the defense that Synergy wanted. I mean, if they had defended that Rainmaker at the 50-point mark, they totally could have made this push. But now it's a situation where they're going to have to make a knockout in the next 40 seconds, 30 seconds. And when I was talking earlier about some early lead being made to 5 points or something, and then the enemy team getting that at the end of the game, I was talking about an early lead being taken at about this time, not the first lead being taken about this time and then the counter lead being taken in overtime.
Yeah, so I was just saying that Synergy's defense, as a result of their short-range weapons, was quite solid. The problem in that case was they didn't have people between the Rainmaker and the base. The short-range weapons sort of, or rather they did, and the rest of that just wasn't where the rest of the team was.
And you know, a little bit more of what you were talking about before with blasters being kind of unable to stop the Rainmaker. We saw the Slosher kind of getting double that problem, where not only do you need the, you know, a blaster needs, you know, if they don't get a direct, they need 2 indirects, and it takes a long time to stop the Rainmaker. The slashing machine can kill in 2 directs at best. So not only was there a situation where you were going to be slower for missing once, it was basically once the slashing machine misses the Rainmaker, that Rainmaker is going bye-bye. You don't paint, you know, you don't do enough damage to him, he's gone.
Yeah, and you can see, again, like, Resbit, unfortunately, seems to have just been shut down that game. There wasn't much you could do against the Charger. The Charger is just way too good at killing Splatlings, essentially. And toward the end of the game there, you could see that because even though the Rainmaker did fall down off the top plat, it almost worked in their favor, because it meant that all the short range weapons sort of got holed up, waiting for the Rainmaker to come, and then suddenly there's a Luna just behind them getting a triple kill. Like, that was essentially what I was getting at before, is that the short range comp works really well when you're fighting against like the Luna and the Tenatech and all that sort of thing. Right. As soon as you're just waiting for a Rainmaker and then the Luna walks up behind you, suddenly that's a matchup that you aren't winning. The whole point of the Luna is to kill people who haven't started shooting at it, and that's exactly what they did. They utterly just trounced Synergy's defense toward the end there, and admittedly, the push to 3 was probably a bit more than they had any right to get, but at the same time, like you pointed out, the sloshing machine doesn't stop Rainmakers very well. You have to get the direct and the indirect basically straight away, and if there's any paint on the ground, it's gone if you don't do that.
Yeah, so that all behind us, we're definitely going to be dealing with some Rainmaker and tower control later in the set if it does go to you know, a game 5 or whatnot. But right now we are looking at splat zones, and this is the first time we're going to see splat zones between these 2 teams. We've talked about sometimes in the past that splat zones is kind of like the team deathmatch of Splatoon. Obviously, we don't have a team deathmatch, and it would not work because of the way, you know, like camping in Ink when there's no objective to go for. But splat zones does a pretty good job of like basically getting people to play team deathmatch with an objective that keeps it healthy, if that kind of makes sense, compared to the other modes. And when you have these teams that have like a bunch of individually skilled players, sometimes the results of splat zones can really come down more to individual skill than some of the other objective game modes. And maybe, you know, this could be the start of some momentum for Synergy. We talked about they're really individually skilled. They don't quite have the same level of, you know, really fine-tuned strategy and teamwork sometimes. But if they're going to get a win off the individual skill, it's going to be in splat zones. The only problem with that is that splat zones on Humpback is kind of notorious for being about special control and mid. So if anyone does have, you know, if Synergy is going to have that kind of individually skilled based just domination of this game mode, the people that are going off are going to need to go off on the right people at the right times to make sure that their kills aren't wasted for nothing because you didn't pop the bubbles on zone or something, or prevent them from being thrown.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've just, by the way, received word that elsewhere in the bracket,
Prophecy is beating STDX.
Yes, we have an interesting tale developing between Prophecy and STDX, who apparently STDX has Ancient Smith on their team because the one and his team are just, they're winning. They're doing what nobody expected, including Splatstats, who I think put a 1% chance on that outcome being the case.
Oh.
Yeah, Prophecy versus STDX, 7%, I should say, my bad. So yeah, miracles do happen, but speaking of miracles, I think Synergy is going to need one, because essentially what we were saying before about the fact that Synergy was quite good at getting a lot of these picks that was sort of still not relevant to the objective, that doesn't really happen in this mode. And that's sort of what Hitzel was alluding to there. And you can already see, Synergy does have the advantage already, and that's partly just because they are winning as they have been this entire series on frags. Unfortunately for them, though, it isn't going to be just splat zones this whole time, so they're going to need to... Sorry.
To interrupt, the STDX versus Prophecy game it is currently on Clan Blitz, so that's what STDX has to win to stay in that set.
Yeah, but it's also Prophecy on Clan Blitz, and the one.
Oh, true. Yeah, they don't like it either. Well, that's.
So it's basically okay. So it's basically going to be who hates Clan Blitz, or who can cheese Clan Blitz the most.
Yeah.
But all bets are off for that one, I guess. Anyway, back to the game we're supposed to be casting. You can. This is sort of the issue, I think, with this strategy of
picking Luna.
Yeah, I didn't want to outright say it. I was just going to say picking the sort of very short range kind of sharking weapons. Is that when you are in control, it's very difficult to get back in because you can't really shark if you don't have control. But at the same time, when you are in control, you can just sort of go wherever you feel like it and dominate the map.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that we've all had. I'm sure that we've all had times when we're playing this map and there's a stupid roller that won't get out from underneath your drop downs, and it just feels like the most impossible thing to deal with. I mean, that's what you're going for with a weapon like the Luna, right? But the issue is that when you're not in control, it just becomes very difficult. That being said, Kyo getting a really clutch kill with that Luna Blaster over there on the left side of your screen, and he does make it to the center of the map. Now, I believe that he was taken out, and unfortunately, Tim is going to take out another member of For the Win right there. So their ability to stop this push has gone away, and this looks like it's going to be lead for Synergy unless something crazy happens on zone, which is kind of the case on Humpback sometimes.
Yeah, well, it does seem as though they can't win the stalemate there, but you can sort of see this is what Tim's been doing the entire set so far, is just getting into those flanking positions with the sloshing machine, getting triple kills. But now, because of spot zones, those triple kills are always going to be important. You can see, like, already, they've got the... Synergy's got the objective back, and there's a 2-down situation here. If they can clean up some of these kills, this penalty is going to start shrinking down mighty quick.
Yeah, and I mean, especially a penalty that's like less than 20 seconds. These are the kind of easy penalties to shave off. But that being said, you're not gonna be able to keep that work with that penalty if your team gets wiped, and that's basically what happened to Synergy right there. So now For the Win is back in control. 2 minutes left on the clock. Very close game score-wise, but you know, to get the objective, to get the zone through a large amount of time like this can be pretty difficult on Humpback zones, because like we talked about, there is always some kind of special weight threatening to just give you a penalty out of nowhere. So even if you control the middle of the map for a long time, as long as enemy specials keep doing something about it, you're not actually going to win from it. And as we say that, though, Synergy has a pretty decent hold on the center of the map now, but they can't get rid of Kyo with this Luna. He has been here basically since his team wiped. His team actually is able to make it back to the map and get complete control before Kyo goes down. Kyo actually still has it gone down, and that is going to be a really good look for the Win. That went from a situation where, you know, there was a kind of a threatening situation where Synergy did have control. They didn't really seem like they were going to be losing control anytime soon, and that penalty didn't seem like it was going to be that significant, to a point where they couldn't kill a Luna that was just running around in zone for 30 seconds that completely allowed For the Win to get back to the game.
Yeah, and that having been said, though, the specials are coming out, so they should be at least able to cap, and they do cap the zone. However, the problem here is that these penalties, this has been going back and forth so much, these penalties are just starting to get very, very insignificant.
Yeah.
A 30-point penalty is sort of only on the edge of being annoying for a scoring team. Like, the rule of thumb I normally go with is, like, once you're down to a 20-point penalty, that's just one team wipe and it's gone. Or not even one team wipe, just one stop push. And you can see exactly that happening right here. The push gets stopped and they're scoring all over again, even though they're...
and I think another problem that Synergy has right now is Synergy has been playing as if they have the lead. You know, they've been just get a penalty, come back, get another penalty kind of thing. Like, that's what you do when you're in the lead on this mode, not when you're not in the lead, and look what's happening.
Yep, and tried his hardest, but at the end there, the junior just wasn't quite good enough to recap the zone. It's a 3-0. 3-0 in favor of For the Win, who's definitely living up to their name. So these guys will be going on to play the winner of Prophecy versus Set to Destroy X, which apparently is looking to be Prophecy. We don't know that yet.